Welcome to the Young Turks Black Friday Spectacular. You know who does Black Friday Spectaculars in the media? No one.
Okay. I'm pretty sure there are people who do it. I don't know, but
yeah, doubt it. All right, so we did this for you guys to make sure that you guys had shows all through Thanksgiving, and I want to tell you guys, by the way, since it's Black Friday, shoptyt.com. Okay, I mean this is the time to kind of be going nuts on shoptyt.com. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you can buy some prezzies for your family. You know, Christmas or the holidays coming up very soon. But look, we did want to do a special for you on Black Friday, and the theme of this special is top videos, right? So some of the top videos that we talked about this year, we're gonna start it off with Trump Jr. Going on The View to basically push his book Triggered, which is hilarious because the only person who ended up getting triggered on that panel was Don Jr.
And can I just say, look, they've been getting triggered all over the book tour. So Kimberly Guilfoyle, if you remember when the conservatives were yelling at them at UCLA, she got triggered. She's like, who raised you? What kind of a person are you? The book is called Triggered. You can't get triggered. But here she is anyway.
While Donald Trump Jr. was making his appearance on The View, he was asked some pretty tough questions when it came to the impeachment investigation, and he really did struggle in defending his own father. Take a look.
In the memo of the call that was released from the White House between your father and the Ukraine president, your father said, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. And we have the entire part of the memo here. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. This is the basis of the impeachment inquiry. Why is that a sham?
The whole
Which is
thing,
what you're calling
first of all, because nothing was withheld. The other guy on the other side actually said, I have no idea what you're talking about. No one knew any aid was even being withheld. The other guy in the Ukraine, in terms of aid being withheld. So no one knew about these things.
But that's not true. That's a lie. Military aid was withheld.
Yeah.
Yes. No one knew about it in the Ukraine. So there was no quid pro quo. You see all the other aspects of this coming out.
It was withheld.
So Sunny Hostin is 100% right. I mean, you see Don Jr. really fumbling there, but there is additional evidence indicating that Ukrainian officials did know that military aid was being withheld unless Zelensky went on CNN, Fareed Zakaria's show, and announced that he was launching an investigation into the Bidens, right? And so you have Kurt Volker, who was writing the statement on behalf of Zelensky, right, for Zelensky. And there was this whole negotiation happening between US and Ukrainian officials. So what he said there was a lie, but you can tell he was lying because he was stuttering and fumbling all over the place.
Yeah, now that we have the latest breaking story that we covered at the top of the show showing that the Ukrainians 100% knew that the aid was being withheld, until they made a damaging statement about Joe Biden. His last defense doesn't make any sense either. He says it wasn't withheld, not remotely true. Sunny Hostin points that out. And then he says, well, they didn't know about it. They didn't know we were trying to be criminals, so I guess we were failed criminals. Also not true. They definitely knew about it and they were under intense pressure. And if you noticed, he doesn't even know the Ukrainian president's name. He's like, the other guy involved in Ukraine, you know, the other guy. It's Zelensky, the guy that your dad is gonna get impeached over. But doesn't bother to do his homework just like his dad.
It's amazing. And then finally, when it comes to Gordon Sondland, who is the EU ambassador, Don Jr. asks or is asked about why Sondland changed his testimony to confirm that there was quid pro quo.
Did Gordon Sondland lie then when he changed his testimony yesterday?
Well, I don't know why he changed his testimony. It's sort of interesting. It almost, he says something.
He's afraid of
on the
perjury.
record.
He's afraid of going to jail.
Or he's afraid of being attacked, like so many of us have for so long, by a vicious left that's running a one-sided sham thing. By Adam Schiff, who's doing a one-sided thing. Republicans
Children.
So while he says that the left is vicious, just keep in mind that Donald Trump, Rand Paul, and the rest of the Trump lackeys are running around demanding for the release of the whistleblower's identity. Some have gone so far as to, on social media post a name. I don't know if it's confirmed. We are not gonna share a name like that on this show, but nonetheless, they're posting it. They're putting someone's life in jeopardy because this individual did the responsible thing in filing an official whistleblower complaint against Trump for something that Trump did that was wrong. That was clearly wrong.
Look, this is how vengeful they are and how crazy they are. So today, Glenn Beck apparently had a long diatribe about how the whistleblower is going to be killed by the Democrats. Like some QAnon-like conspiracy where the whistleblower is actually on Trump's side or some insanity like that. We'll look into it more. Maybe we'll have more of that on tomorrow's show. But Donald Trump Jr. is also a guy who's gone after the whistleblower. But the reality is the whistleblower actually is totally irrelevant. They're latching on to him to make him some sort of enemy to be hated. But he said, hey guys, red flag, there's a issue here and you should look into it. We did look into it and it turns out he was right. And we now have half a dozen witnesses who all say the same thing. So you don't need the whistleblower at all.
I know.
He's just the one that raised the flag. And so when they originally said some of his evidence is hearsay, if you remember on this show, I said that's actually true, but that's why they're gonna do an investigation and find out if it's hearsay that's wrong or hearsay that's correct. They did the investigation and they found the actual witnesses. The whistleblower is totally irrelevant, but these guys are like a mob. So they're like, the rat, we gotta find the rat so we can go crush him, right? And then you say the left is vicious, hilarious.
I mean, it's all about retaliation. And more importantly, it's about intimidation. Because you think there aren't more potential whistleblowers in the Trump administration? This is their way of, because remember, if this individual's identity is released and you know that if you're a potential whistleblower and you know that that could happen to you, are you willing to come forward and blow the whistle on potentially criminal activities in the Trump administration? It's terrifying, and in this climate of political violence, I mean, it's not an easy decision to make. This is a form of intimidation, plain and simple.
And look, it's a mob move, because the biggest crime in the mob is ratting people out, working with law enforcement, working with the cops to tell them about your law breaking. So the funny thing is they're not going after the witnesses nearly as much who say, yes, he did the crime. They're more worried about the original rat who told the cops on us. Look, if it wasn't a lifelong criminal enterprise for the Trump organization, you would say it's irrational, it doesn't make any sense. But it's their instinct. Hey, we break the law all the time, make sure that you target the guy who pointed it out.
So Lieutenant Colonel Vidman, who has testified in the impeachment investigation, who has confirmed that there was quid pro quo, he has been defamed, slandered by these Trump lackeys over and over again. They've accused him of being a never Trumper, all sorts of nonsense. You know that he's still showing up to work every day in the White House?
Look, that guy's brave, a lot of them are brave, and I hope they have protection because the president has completely deranged followers who literally send pipe bombs and try to murder people who are opposed to the president. So, and Donald Trump Jr. and all of them go on and egg people on all throughout. Last thing, because it's just randomly funny. Remember, as I was mocking last week, the Republicans' defense of Donald Trump, including Kevin McCarthy, he was just throwing out legal terms that had no logical connection to this case. It was just like mad libs of Trump defenses, legal terms. And I even said in my joking around, they'll just come out and go, there's no prima facie case, because it's just a random Latin word that Kimberly Guilfoyle in that appearance said, there's no prima facie case. Okay, it again, makes no sense in this context. You don't need a prima facie case, but it doesn't matter. It's like, if I use a Latin word, nobody will understand it, and I'll seem smart.
Welcome back to the Young Turks. All right, we're having fun. All right, I love that last video with Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle getting bothered by the fact that they're getting asked tough questions. But they're not the only ones who got bothered this year, Cenk.
Yeah, no, Pompeo, this next clip is going to be great because this is where he was saying, well, look, guys, the infamous Ukrainian call that Trump did, what name so? I mean, he was trying to deny it the whole time. Like, I mean, how would I know what was said in the Ukraine call? Except for the fact it turns out he was on the call.
Oh, I love it. I love how every single one of their defenses gets like knocked down immediately. Like, did he think that people wouldn't find out that he was on that call?
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about the Trump people. They're like, I don't care. Like obviously I was on the call, and obviously at some point people are gonna find out. But what the heck? I'll give it a shot. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so here it is.
The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, remains defiant when it comes to subpoenas by congressional Democrats who, of course, would like to speak with him and get some information about his involvement in the Trump Ukraine call. Now, earlier it was reported that Pompeo said he knew nothing about the call. He was completely in the dark. And then yesterday, news broke indicating that Pompeo was actually listening in on Donald Trump's phone conversation with Vladimir Zelensky, who was, of course, the Ukrainian president.
You know, and I'm gonna interrupt to say two things. One is tick, 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 tick. The other is some chance that he was in the dark. He was just listening to look, this is really good, man. Hold on. No, turn the lights off. Turn the lights off. Like, I'm really enjoying this, man. He talked about Biden again, Biden. Okay. But look, it gives you a sense of what hilarious liars they are. He's like, I have not seen the memo that describes the call. And no, I did not read the whistleblower complaint. Yeah, look, it's partly about you. I would imagine you should read it. But he's like, no, I haven't done any of that. And then like 2 days later, dude, you were on the call. Yeah, okay, that's true.
It's incredible. So various House committees that are conducting these investigations as part of the impeachment inquiry have subpoenaed members of the State Department. And Pompeo has responded to that by saying that, nope, we're not going to cooperate until we obtain further clarity on these matters. And for his part, Pompeo is arguing, no, haven't done anything wrong. Take a look.
The president's lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, has said that the State Department instructed him to get involved with Ukraine, to reach out to President Zelensky and his aides. Is that correct? And if so, what exactly was he told to do by the State Department?
To the best of my knowledge, and from what I've seen so far, each of the actions that were undertaken by State Department officials was entirely appropriate and consistent with the objective that we've had, certainly since this new government has come into office.
Now, yesterday, we shared a story about how senior aides in Biden's campaign are arguing that cable news networks and television stations should no longer book Rudy Giuliani to comment on this whole controversy because he keeps spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories about Biden. Now, I would argue that that's actually a really bad move based on principle and also just based on strategy, because Giuliani is the one who's going on cable news incriminating members of the State Department. If you don't remember that, take a look at this next video.
He has resigned. Do you know why?
I don't know why Kurt resigned. I mean,
he's being deposed this week.
I think there are a lot of people in the State Department who maybe have questions about what he did and why he did it. But I should tell you, he wasn't the only one. He was joined by another ambassador who talked to me, debriefed me, gave me information about what to ask Mr. Yermak.
Who is that?
I did not do this on my own. I did it at the request of the State Department. Why the State Department is running away from it?
Did Secretary of State Pompeo know you were doing these things? Did he ask you to do these things?
He did not. Mr. Volker did, and then Mr. Sondland did. But when I talked to the Secretary last week, he said he was aware of it. He told me that he was aware of it.
Oh, I love this. I love this catfight. And it's right in front of everybody on national TV. Giuliani is throwing the State Department under the bus. So Pompeo is saying like, call, what call? What name so? I never heard of it, right? And Giuliani's going out there and be like, oh yeah, here's the text from the State Department, and it's Volker, and it's this guy, and Pompeo told me last week he knows about it. And so everybody's in the yard, and everybody's got a shiv. And so they're like, and everybody's bleeding out all over the place. It's all over television. And then meanwhile, like Trump and his trolls online are like, nothing to see. What do you mean? The real problem I see is with the Democrats, right? You see what I'm saying? No, nobody sees what you're saying. You guys are lunatics, and it's on display for everyone. And so if you're wondering why are they shivving each other? What's going on here? Because Giuliani is saying to the State Department, you better not throw me under the bus saying that I went to Ukraine without permission and started conducting shadow foreign policy, and I'm the bad guy and I committed illegal acts. Nuh-uh, you told me to do it, and here's the text, and et cetera. He's got more threats coming up later, right? Mm-hmm. And then meanwhile, Pompeo is in bigger trouble, because it's one thing if this Looney Tune Giuliani is running around Eastern Europe going, hey man, give me documents on Soros and Biden and whatever. And so he goes in like that, right?
That's exactly how he does it.
Okay, anyway, but it's another thing if the State Department is authorizing trips that are not on behalf of the United States government, but on behalf of Donald Trump as a person and as a politician. That could be more problematic and illegal. So that's why Pompeo was like in a cold sweat. I was in a dark room. I don't know what happened. What are you doing, Rudy? What are you doing?
So Pompeo's first strategy, which obviously didn't work, was to lie about what he knew or what his involvement was in the communications between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky. And then once news broke indicating that he was listening in on that call, he decided to change course and essentially tell these various House committees that he will not cooperate with their subpoenas. So I'm curious to see how these committees respond to that, because there has been strong language in regard to refusals to cooperate. They claim that they will hold individuals in contempt of Congress. We'll see if that happens. But I do want to play one more clip. Again, this is a clip that we've shown you in previous shows, but it features Rudy Giuliani, again, incriminating the State Department. This is from September 26. Take a look.
Are you, Rudy, concerned that you're unnecessarily dragging, his name into this?
Who? Whose name?
Volker's name.
Well, yes,
Volker.
Well, he should step forward and explain what he did. I went to meet Mr. Zelensky's aide at the request of the State Department. 15 memos make that clear.
Tick, 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 tick. Look, when the rats are scurrying around the ship, like, no, you go in first. Oh, get out of here! I'm going to get on the lifeboat first. Well, then you got issues here, and when you're doing it in front of everybody, people can see the panic. I can smell the Republican panic in the morning, and it smells disgusting.
Delicious. I like it.
At the same time,
yeah.
It's like a Roquefort cheese.
So pungent.
It's like, yeah, what is that? But hold on, let me try it. Tick, 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 tick,
yeah.
tick,
but
tick,
my
tick,
favorite
tick.
line from Pompeo, who wrote a letter to these committees, was the following. He argues that these Democrats are attempting to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly the distinguished professionals of the Department of State.
Oh yes, I'm so glad you read that. That was my favorite line too. So what I loved is the distinguished professionals of the Department of State.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
no, but Mike, he's talking about you. So he's referring to himself as, please, the Congress trying to intimidate distinguished professionals such as myself, who only listens to calls in the dark. So in a sense, this whole segment is about as the White House turns. And so, and we're keeping it real.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General.
He's also disappointed in the Secretary of State, the Vice President, all of them. So we're keeping it real. We pre-taped this because we wanted you guys to have an extra show on, actually 2 extra shows on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. So by the time you watch this, some of these people might have already been fired.
Seriously,
okay.
Yeah.
So, but we were recently talking about how Trump might throw Pompeo under the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, that bus is like, wobbly because of how many people are underneath it. In this one, we're gonna talk about pets.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump wants everyone to be loyal to him, but he's not loyal to anyone. And during the impeachment investigation, when various officials come up, he talks about throwing them under the bus. Pence is one of them. And he essentially says, like, look, if I'm going down, I'm gonna make sure I take Pence with me. Watch.
Drums.
There's a split between the president's aides and the vice president's aides, and that is always a sign of impending disaster.
That's Joe Lockhart, who worked in Bill Clinton's administration, and he has noticed something that has actually become quite obvious. There is a growing rift between Donald Trump and his own vice president, Mike Pence, as a result of this impeachment inquiry. Now, how much did Vice President Mike Pence know about the phone call with Donald Trump? You have Donald Trump's aide saying, oh, Pence knew everything. And then at the same time, you have Pence's aide saying, well, no, maybe he didn't know anything at all. We don't know. It seems like he's been left in the dark about all of this. So before I give you the details on that, and it's an excellent detailed report in the Washington Post, I want to give you a little more of what Joe Lockhart had to say. Take a look.
It's a bit of a circular firing squad right now at the White House as people try to position their principles and settle some scores in the in the process.
Look, I might get struck by lightning for suggesting there's some grand strategy here, but if you look at the big picture, there are those who suggest that the White House, the president's team, is bringing up the word Mike Pence, or the words, I suppose, Mike Pence, because what they're doing is sending the message, everyone's involved here. If you come after me, it's everyone who's going down. So take this seriously.
Yeah, I think the Pence people, tried to put out a line that, insulated him, and the Trump White House sent a message saying, if I'm going down, you're coming down with me. There's only one story coming out of this White House, and it's not one that protects you. It goes to the White House strategy, though. I mean, look at what Trump and the team did when Mitt Romney came out and said he was troubled by this. They put out a video that was designed to embarrass him. That wasn't a message to Romney. It was a message to the other 52 senators in the Senate saying, if you say something negative about us, we will come after you with all of the might of the $300 million we have in the bank at the campaign and the pulpit that we have here at the White House.
So I think Lockhart is 100% right. And this is just my perception of this. I don't believe that Mike Pence was just completely unaware and just like this dopey guy who didn't know what was really going on. Again, that is my speculation, but let me give you the details from the Washington Post report. Before I do so though, Cenk, do you want to jump in?
I do. I have 4 words to say here. Tick, 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 tick. Okay, all right, listen. Their analysis actually was spot on. Pence definitely tried to skate by on this one, like, I don't know. But Trump made him a henchman, as you're about to see, so he can't skate on it. And now he's having to go all in. And of course, the president, as usual, made him walk the plank. And now he's out there defending the president so that he's just as culpable as Trump is. And if Trump thought he could get away with it by blaming Pence, like getting dirt on the Bidens, I got it. That was Mike Pence. Like, you think he wouldn't do that? He'd do that.
He'd do that, except he's now incriminated himself publicly so many times, and his whole response to this impeachment investigation is like, yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did because I want to drain the swamp. Right, so he can't blame Pence for it, but what I think Trump likes to do is drag everyone down with him.
100%, that's what I was getting at. So since there's no way that he could fully deflect to Pence, then why is he doing it? He's just saying like, no, I want everyone defending me, because if you don't, I'm gonna drag all of you down with me and make sure, because what, he cares about the Republican Party? He cares about principles? Oh, go on. He cares about his colleague, Mike Pence, his partner, the vice president. No, the only thing that Donald Trump ever cares about is Donald Trump. So if he's got to kill everybody on the way down politically within the Republican Party, he'll do it in a second. But that's eventually what's going to cost him the presidency, because enough Republican senators are going to go, this guy's going to kill us all, man, politically. So what's the point of staying with him? We haven't gotten to that ticking point yet, but tick, tick.
All right, well, let me give you some more detail into what Trump actually had Pence do prior to us finding out about this whole whistleblower complaint. According to the Washington Post, Trump instructed Pence not to attend the inauguration of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in May, an event White House officials had pushed to put on the vice president's calendar when Ukraine's new leader was seeking recognition and support from Washington. So you have White House officials pushing Pence to do this, but at the same time, simultaneously, you have Donald Trump telling Pence, no, don't do it. It's a bad idea, don't go to the inauguration. And Pence didn't go to his inauguration. Okay, now that's relevant because it's part of Trump's ploy to make this new Ukrainian president bend to his will and essentially carry out favors for him, right? Because remember, Ukraine needs the US to assist them in this military aid. Let me give you more detail. Now, instead of traveling to Kiev as he was supposed to, Pence was supposed to, for this May 30th inauguration, Pence actually attended a Trump campaign in Jacksonville, Florida, and made an official trip to Canada later that month. Now, months later, the president used Pence to tell Zelensky that US aid was still being withheld while demanding more aggressive action on corruption. The Ukrainians probably understood action on corruption to include the investigation of former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. So when Pence finally did meet with Zelensky, and this was on September 1st, here's what happened during that conversation. Pence told Zelensky that aid was being withheld due to corruption concerns. That's exactly what Trump wanted him to do. Pence emphasized Trump's frustration that the EU should provide more aid to Ukraine. Pence didn't mention Biden, but former officials claim Pence mentioning corruption was code for that issue, whether Pence intended it or not.
Yeah, I actually think that undersells it. So involving Pence actually implicates Trump more, not less. As usual, Trump doing more damage to himself because he's not smart enough to figure it out. Because when Trump says in the call, hey, listen, the US does a lot of things for you guys. He doesn't mention the military aid, as far as we know. We'd love to get the official transcript. Anyway, he says, but we do a lot of things for you guys. Now, I need you to do me a favor, though, and investigate Biden. But then he follows up by sending Pence to say, remember that corruption we were talking about? And in the call, Trump clearly connects corruption to Biden. And he doesn't mention any Ukrainians in the corruption. It's not like, well, you guys have this massive problem. Oh, but you know what, 11% of it is the Bidens. I'm worried about corruption overall. No, when he talks about corruption, he only mentions Biden, okay? So then he sends Pence over and says, now remember, we're not sure about the aid and we wanted you to take action on corruption. Boom, that actually is the quid pro quo. And any prosecutor worth their salt could prove that as well. They're a team, they say they're a team, and one guy says, hey, I want you to investigate Biden, that's the corruption I'm talking about. The next guy says, remember that corruption we were talking about? That's why we're not giving you the aid. Done deal. So like if you're a Trump defender, no amount of facts or logic will matter to you. It doesn't matter. You will say on the one hand, Hunter Biden, what does he know about Ukrainian gas? What is he getting paid for that company? Oh, you know corruption when I see it. Now, it's not technically illegal, but I actually agree that it is corruption. Hunter Biden doesn't know anything about Ukrainian gas. You know why I say that? Because I'm a reasonable human being. I can assess the fact that a guy who doesn't know anything about Ukrainian gas gets $50,000 a month. Why? Because his last name is Biden, right? Now, when we ask you, hey, when Trump says, investigate corruption, i.e. Biden, and then Pence says, I'm not giving you the money until you investigate corruption. Everyone knows what they're talking about. The only reason you're not admitting it if you're a Trump supporter is because you're a Trump supporter. You're like, I don't care about facts. I don't care about what does my cult leader say. You know it, you know it, you know it.
And also, why is your cult leader having a very public meltdown right now? I mean, he's been having a public meltdown ever since this whistleblower complaint became public news. But here's the thing. I think an important part of this story is holding Vice President Mike Pence accountable and not allowing him to push this ridiculous narrative that he was insulated from all of this and he was completely unaware. Because, and I'm kind of burying the lead, so I'm gonna share you one of the most important parts of this story. According to the Washington Post report, his own aide and one of his top aides was listening in on that call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky. So the aide is Kellogg, Pence's top national security advisor, listened in on the call from the Situation Room, which was the standard practice, but did not see it as unusual or flag any concerns about it to the vice president. Now that's according to aides who spoke to the Washington Post, but here's one other thing. After that call happened, literally the day after that call happened, Pence is supposed to get a summary of the conversation. So are you telling me that he received that summary of the conversation and then proceeded to meet with Vladimir Zelensky without reading the summary of that conversation? So the vice president didn't actually prepare for his meeting with Zelensky? I don't know, I'm just not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, if it was Trump, it would be much more plausible that he's like, oh, 5 pages. How could Trump, the man-child, ever get through 5 pages? But so it's a briefing that they gave to a couple of things here. He gets his guys on the call, as Anna told you, gets a summary of the call, and then he gets a briefing on his way to meet Zelensky that explains to him what it is that they want to accomplish with Zelensky. So they're saying the best defense Pence has is, I suck at my job. I never do any homework, just like the boss. The boss tells me don't read anything, don't study anything. So I never looked at a single paper in my life. They gave me everything I needed to know, and my assistant Kellogg's like a former general. So this like top level guy was on the call, but he didn't tell me, golly gee. And so when I was breaking Zelensky's kneecaps about the aid, I
didn't know what I was doing.
I just thought it was just random that I was withholding the aid, even though everybody was like, and Zelensky seemed apparently in that conversation distraught that the aid had still not been delivered.
Exactly.
Like, and Pence is like, oh golly gee, I don't know why. I don't know what corruption means. I haven't. And again, no one ever mentions any Ukrainian names when they talk about corruption in Ukraine. I mean, all you have to do is a little bit of work to hide your corruption. You have to say, oh my God, I'm really upset about Jim Jablowski and Joe Jablowski in Ukraine, and also Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. But really, I want you to clean up corruption. But neither Pence nor Trump do that at all. Corruption, Biden. Hey, no, I don't know, man. Oh, you want the aid? Oh, it seems like you really want the aid. I think you got to look into corruption. Everybody on the planet knows what it is. And even the guys who say they don't, they're lying. They're pretending not to realize it's super obvious. Welcome back to the Black Friday special. Well, I got to do something like that because there's no power panel on this Friday. Anyways, so we're doing our favorite clips, and this was one of my favorite of all time. This is a doozy where Rudy makes an ass out of himself. I know you're thinking,
yeah, which one?
Which one, right? So this is the one where he famously waved the phone around. But I want to give you a little bit of context. We did a different story later where we remember that Trump was thinking of appointing Rudy Giuliani to be basically his internet security chief. And it turns out he locked himself out of his phone. And so he had to go to the Genius Bar at the Apple store to unlock his phone. I mean, it was already a total disaster. But then he's on TV and going like, look at my phone. Dummy. Watch.
He says he didn't know his son was under investigation. That's absurd. That he never talked to his son about his son's foreign business. Do you believe that? Don't you think I can prove that he did? You think I'm stupid?
Well, the fact that Laura Ingraham didn't answer that question tells you everything you need to know about Rudy Giuliani and how stupid people think he really is. He made a mess of yet another Fox News appearance. He was all over the place. He made all sorts of claims that are untrue. We're gonna go through the videos and we're going to debunk his claims and also probably make fun of him. Let's take a look.
Insiders saying, you mucked this up, your response.
Man, I really did. And you know who I did it at the request of? The State Department. I never talked to a Ukrainian official until the State Department called me and asked me to do it. And then I reported every conversation back to them. And Laura, I'm a pretty good lawyer, just a country lawyer, but it's all here, right here. The first call from the State Department.
Rudy, I couldn't agree with you more. But why are you the one to do this? Why isn't this the role of the Justice Department or the FBI? Why task you, the personal attorney, the president, to do that? I think that's a question that just layman was like, okay, I get it. That should be investigated. But why is Rudy running the show on that? Why isn't it FBI and the main justice?
That's a very good question. Because the FBI's performance since its entire investigation, including up to this moment, is flawed. Why am I doing it, Laura? Can't you figure it out? I'm his defense lawyer. I'm defending him. He's my client. I don't know, only Donald Trump is not entitled to a defense in America.
So Rudy Giuliani, who is not a government official, he is Donald Trump's personal lawyer, is arguing that the State Department called on him to work with Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. Now, according to reports, when reached for comment, a State Department spokesman said, Mr. Giuliani is a private citizen and acts in a personal capacity as a lawyer for President Trump. He does not speak on behalf of the US government. Now, there's one other element to this, though. Mike Pompeo might have asked for Giuliani's involvement. Pompeo was asked about that and he refused to get into details. So
here's my first comment on that. Tick, 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 tick. So let me explain why. First of all, train wreck. We got more videos coming up for you, but you could even tell from Laura Ingraham. She keeps looking at him like, you think I'm stupid? And she's like, and you know what she did at the end of the interview? She said, I'm sorry to cut you off. You have to get your voice back. Okay, so that she's like no mas. She threw in the towel. Like I got to get this guy off the air before he does more damage. Amazing. Now the reason I say tick 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 though is when he holds up the phone and he says, I've got it recorded what the State Department said. That means there is massive internal fighting. So State Department's trying to throw Giuliani under the bus, and Giuliani does a threat on national television. Oh yeah, I'll throw you under the bus. I recorded our conversations. This is happening in public. That's unbelievable. So when you have that kind of infighting, only a matter of time before somebody goes, I've had enough. This is what actually happened. I'm saying it publicly.
So at one point on the show, Giuliani is asked to leave, right? Go take care of your voice. And then at one point, there is a panel, and there's a Democrat by the name of Chris Hahn involved. And Chris Hahn gets under Giuliani's skin so much that Giuliani comes back and they begin to spar. Take a look.
I just heard the president's personal political attorney say that he was directed by the State Department to go meet with the Ukraine to get evidence on the president's political opponent. Rudy Giuliani, who hasn't practiced political criminal law since the early 80s, is now saying he has evidence, he has all this information, he's making things up. And if the Bidens weren't public figures, it would be libelous.
I'd like to say, Mr. Hahn, I should sue you for libel because you irresponsibly say.
Please.
Yeah, well, you actually usually say incredibly stupid things.
You're a public figure.
Yeah, and by the way, do you have any idea that the State Department?
So then you know the libel law.
Shut up, moron. Shut up.
Okay, hold on.
Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
Chris,
you don't know what you're talking about, idiot.
I do.
The state? No, you don't. You just
Mr.
lied.
Mayor, I wish you would stop.
You lied, my friend.
I wish you would stop, Mr. Mayor.
Well, why don't you tell him? Why don't you tell him?
I wish you would stop.
Why don't you tell him to keep his mouth shut so we can tell the truth?
Yeah.
All right, two things I love about that. Chris Hahn actually did a right-wing trick there. Constantly interrupt and jab, 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 and filibuster. Honestly, that's what right-wingers do on cable news 24/7, and it gets under people's skin to no end. They can't get their point out. I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do, but it was great to see it flipped on its head and used against Giuliani. And he's like, shut up, you're moron, right? But that wasn't my favorite part. My favorite part was the guy in the middle.
Yeah, his face.
Right, and look at that. Literally wincing and like, what am I doing here? He's like, he's in the Brady Bunch, but he's not in the family. So he's like, what's going on here?
Well, we're not done yet. Things get they devolve further. So let's take a look at the next clip.
He said about me that I was asked by the State Department to go dig up political dirt on Trump's opponent. Totally false. The State Department asked me.
You just said it.
No, I didn't. You did, you liar. You
finish.
did.
Just let him
Tell
finish,
him,
then you can respond.
Turn him off so I can speak.
Let Andy respond to this.
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have any idea what you're talking about.
You just said.
I did not say the State. And you know who I did it at the request of? The State Department. I never talked to a Ukrainian official until the State Department called me and asked me to do it. And then I reported every conversation back to them.
Oops. So he absolutely did. Chris Hahn did bust him. The guy in the middle is still like, oh, what am I doing here?
I mean, look, I guess credit to Chris Hahn, but super low bar. Like, Giuliani's all over the place. I mean, he contradicts himself. He's just like Trump. Maybe this is the reason why Trump likes him so much.
Definitely.
They're very similar in contradicting themselves in the same sentence.
peas in a pod. Are you kidding me? Like no other, like if you think Giuliani has mentally deteriorated, well, that's pretty obvious. I mean, you just see it all over TV. But who would hire him as their lawyer on a case that will determine how you're viewed for the rest of time? I mean, you literally cannot have a more important case, and you hired that guy as your lawyer? I mean, if Giuliani came into my office, he's like, I'm gonna call people, they're stupid. You think I'm stupid? I'd be like, no, it's okay. I'm gonna get a different attorney, right? And Trump goes, that's my boy. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Okay, so, but Trump will throw anyone under a bus. And if he throws Giuliani under a bus, I'm telling you, like Giuliani's unhinged too.
No, Giuliani's gonna end up in prison. I have no doubt at this point.
But Giuliani also, if State Department or Trump throws him under a bus, he's gonna come up out from under the bus like a horror movie and be like, oh yeah, this is all my evidence, right?
True, but I mean, look, didn't that happen with Michael Cohen? And Trump is still in office. It's kind of incredible. So there is one final part of this, and it's Donald Trump, because Donald Trump also likes to incriminate himself. So I do want to show this quick clip. Take a look at that.
Rudy Giuliani, why do you think it's appropriate for your personal attorney to get involved in government business?
Well, you'd have to ask Rudy. I will tell you this, that Rudy's looking to also find out where the phony witch hunt started, how it started. You had a Russian witch hunt that turned out to be 2.5 years of phony nonsense. And Rudy Giuliani's a great lawyer. He was a great mayor. He's highly respected. I've watched the passion that he's had on television over the last few days. I think it's incredible the way he's done. And Rudy's got every right to go and find out where that started. And other people are looking at that too. Where did it start? The enablers. Where did it all come from? It was out of thin air. And I think he's got a very strong right to do it. He's a good lawyer. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Okay, two important things out of there. Number one, no. A personal attorney doing diplomacy for the United States of America makes no sense. That's not how diplomacy is done. He's not part of the United States government. That's madness. Second of all, for that attorney to then go and not only do diplomacy, but do illegal diplomacy where he says, give us dirt on our political opponent in exchange for promises from the American government. Unheard of, but crazy. But actually the most relevant part was what he said in the beginning. You'd have to ask Rudy. That's the kind of thing he says when he's about to throw you under the bus. I mean, it wasn't me. I mean, Rudy's a great lawyer. Why don't you ask him? Tick, 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 tick. All right, back on the Young Turks. I know you're full from Thanksgiving, but it's Dunkin' Donuts time.
You're crazy.
By the way, how is that not a sponsored segment on our show?
I don't know.
Okay, come on, sales team. Well, this is where Tommy tried to dunk on AOC. AOC then actually dunks on her, and we dunk on Tommy while AOC is dunking. That's my short explanation.
It's a giant dunking contest. But let me just say, this is one of the clips that we did earlier in the year in January. And Tommy Lahren seems to really target AOC often. If you can recall, she tried to dress like AOC for Halloween, and she's like, "Oh, I wanted to dress up like the person that scares me the most, a socialist, right?" And then everyone dunked on her, and it just never works out. But she never learns her lesson. Anyway, in this next clip, Tommy Lahren tries to make an argument about how being popular on social media doesn't mean you're successful. Ironic. Take a look. Tommy Lahren is not known for being bright, which makes it fascinating when you hear her go after someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the youngest person elected to Congress in history, for not being accomplished enough to hold that position. Now, I don't want to put words in her mouth. I want to have you hear what she has to say about AOC. And then what are we gonna do, Cenk? We're gonna dunk on her. Dunk on her. Okay.
Oh, I like your dunk better. I was just dunking like a donut or something.
No, I like dunking like I'm playing basketball.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. All right. We can do that.
Let's watch.
There's a difference between being successful on Twitter and social media like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and being relatable on social media platforms and actually being successful in real life. But listen, the American people, we don't want a handout. We want the government's hand off. We want the ability to achieve the American dream in a safe and secure nation. And this crop of Democrats offer none of those things.
Being accomplished in real life. So how much more accomplished do you want her to be? Youngest woman ever elected to Congress. Do you want her to be the youngest woman senator? She literally couldn't be president. She doesn't meet the age requirement. Did you want her on the Supreme Court? What else? And by the way, Tommy, what have you been up to?
Right, I mean, that's
successful.
a
I mean, you kidding me?
great point. That's a great point. Now look, it's not very progressive to get personal, but I'm gonna get personal. So let's just quickly go to graphic 38. My favorite thing to talk about is the tweets that Tomi Lahren deleted after she became a public figure and pretended like she was some self-righteous conservative. One of my favorites included this, graphic 38, where she says, "Doesn't matter to me as long as I can A, drink, B, pop that P."
Huh. I wonder what that P refers to.
Okay, lots of fun. Anyway, you can delete your tweets, but they will exist forever. We all know that.
Yes.
Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has dealt with this type of treatment before. In fact, recently she responded to someone on Twitter who accused her of not having, much of a record or any experience, being nothing more than a bartender. And here's her response. This bartender has served in a Senate casework office, organized and educated thousands of young people, earned relevant degrees with honors, worked on field campaigns, and the only reason I wasn't told to run for city council was because I was consistently told not to run at all.
So the person had said, why did this bartender run for city council or do something else and work her way up? But she won a congressional seat, so I don't know what you're complaining about.
No, but more importantly, do you not understand how elections work, right? So she didn't get appointed to that position. She didn't have a family member who appointed her to that position, okay? She was elected by the people in her district. So if you have any beef, to hash out, maybe talk to some of those voters and get an understanding for why they voted for her.
And so, two quick things about that original tweet. One is the huge disdain for the working class. This bartender, right? Don't you know that politics is for the elite? And she pretty much went broke running, as a lot of the Just Democrats did, because in most of the states you can't take a salary, and they weren't rich to begin with. They didn't have any money. So instead of saying, isn't that amazing, the sacrifice an actual sacrifice. A lot of times politicians talk about, I sacrificed for this country. No, you didn't. You made millions upon millions of dollars. We're talking about sacrifice. She actually did make a sacrifice to run, and they go, bartender, right? And then the other part is, hey, why don't you go back to city council, et cetera? Why? Because you don't want change. You want everybody to wait their turn and wait and wait and wait. And so, no, we're not for the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. We're for the fierce urgency of now, and so are her voters. But now, to Tomi Lahren to come back around, I don't know what she's ever done in her life, other than say outrageously racist, bigoted, et cetera stuff to grab enough attention, and so to get onto Fox News and other conservative outlets, and for her to try to say that Ocasio-Cortez is not accomplished enough is hilarious.
And even if you bought into that nonsense that she hasn't done much in her life, which is a complete and utter lie, look at what she's doing now. I mean, she is changing the discourse in the country. People are now focusing on raising tax rates for the wealthy, but very specifically, increasing the top marginal tax rate. Honestly, if you had asked me just 3 months ago, you think the country's ever gonna have a discussion or a debate about doing that? I'd be like, no, there's no way. Like no one even knows what the top marginal tax rate is. I mean, of course people know, but it's not something that's a regular discussion that people have. And now
certainly not in Washington.
Exactly, and now all of a sudden we're having a conversation about it, and it's fantastic. What kind of conversation has Tomi Lahren led in this country?
That moved policy. Are you kidding me? So, by the way, Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, said that he agrees that they need to move the marginal tax rate. She got the CEO of JP Morgan Chase to agree that they should move the marginal tax rate up. What have you done, Tommy? What have you done? Nothing. So, and by the way, the Just Democrats picked her. They didn't mind that she was brought. There was, if you don't know how this works, and they're doing it now. So go to justdemocrats.com/nominate, okay? Because that's how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wound up running for office. She was nominated. So Just Democrats leaders, former founders, me, Shoykan is now her chief of staff, but their current leaders came on the Young Turks and explained how that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came to run in that race. They found her through that nomination process. There's this wonderful story. It's actually her brother who nominated her, okay? And when they looked to see and why they picked her above everyone else was because that record of service. They look for a record of service and understanding the issues. And that's why they picked her, because she already had a great record. By the way, I'm telling you right now, go to justdemocrats.com/nominate. Nominate people that have that similar record of service in your community. There's a good chance they will be picked, and they could be the next Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and drive Tomi Lahren and Fox News even more crazy, right? And move the conversation even further in the direction that the American people actually agree with. When she talks about the marginal tax rate, even a Fox News poll said 70% of Americans agree that it should go up. Last point. Lauren there said, just being big on social media doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you have any real life accomplishments. So I'm gonna read a tweet from Donald Trump for you guys. Only the fake news media and Trump enemies want me to stop using social media. 110 million people. Only way for me to get the truth out. It's one of dozens of times that he has bragged about his Twitter followers and social media followers. So I guess, since he's saying the only people that complain about social media are fake news people, Tommy fake news Lauren. Okay, apparently he thinks you're fake news. And that goes to the hypocrisy of these guys. When Donald Trump brags about his social media all the time, they're like, bravo, way to get around the fake news and just go directly to the people. When Ocasio-Cortez does it, no real life accomplishments. Yes, your BS is showing. Continuing on with the Dunkin' Donuts theme, now a reporter dunks on Donald Trump.
Oh, it's so good, but not really. The reporter's just simply doing the reporter's job, right?
Yeah.
So the question is about the wall that Donald Trump is supposedly building on the southern border. And this is one of the last press conferences that Trump did. Now, this is during the 35-day government shutdown, okay? And it was all about funding for his border wall. And so a reporter asks him a question, he doesn't like it, he throws a Trump-like temper tantrum, and then later he does the chopper talk rather than these full-blown press conferences.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Like, I like that conspiracy theory that he's doing the chopper talk because the things he says are so stupid, at least it should be drowned out by the chopper. Like that helps just a little bit, right?
Right.
They're like, okay, at least give it bad audio. And it might have arisen from this debacle that you're about to see.
We have entered the second week of a partial government shutdown, and things are really starting to fall apart. Various stories are coming out regarding the IRS and how it is severely understaffed at this point because of the number of employees who had to be furloughed. And so if you're looking forward to getting a tax refund this year, it's probably going to come in much later than expected. But with all of this going on, House Democrats are trying to do what they can to make sure that the government opens back up without giving Trump the ridiculous amount of money that he wants for a border wall or border fence or the steel slats. I mean, he's called it a million different things at this point. Now, they have introduced 2 bills, and Mitch McConnell in the Senate, of course, says, no, we know that Trump is gonna veto both bills, so we're not even gonna bring this up. But here's what House Democrats have proposed. The first bill passed in the House by a 239 to 192 vote, was a continuing resolution funding the Department of Homeland Security through February 8th. The House also voted 241 to 190 to approve funds for 6 agencies through the end of this fiscal year. Now, the shorter funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security is intended to provide time for more talks on the wall since border security is overseen by that agency. So let's stop for a second. If you're the president and you believe that border security is of the utmost importance, right? Wouldn't you want to ensure that the Department of Homeland Security has the funding necessary to continue operating? Does that matter at all? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he keeps talking about criminals and rapists coming in. He keeps talking about, oh, there's another. Now he's saying that there's another caravan coming in. We should all be very afraid. But seems like he's not really scared because he doesn't want to fund the government. The House Homeland Security stopgap would also keep border security funding at $1.3 billion, providing no new funding for the barrier along the southern border.
And can I just back up what you're saying? I saw a report today that some government officials, including TSA people, have stopped showing up to work because they're not getting paid. And Trump keeps saying, oh, this will last months. They're like, hey, look, it's one thing if it lasts 4 days and I still get my paycheck. And maybe it's another thing if it lasts like 2.5 weeks and that is brutal for me. I don't know how I'm gonna pay my mortgage, but I guess you'll make it up, et cetera, and I can go to work. But if you're telling me this is gonna last months, and now some Republicans are saying years.
What?
So I'm supposed to show up to work for years and not get paid? Yeah, no, sorry, turns out I'm sick. So if Department of Homeland Security starts doing that, well then we're in a lot of trouble because we're asking them to work for free.
That's exactly right. So there are right-wing politicians who are egging Trump on, and then there are also some Republicans from states that Hillary Clinton won in the general election who are very much concerned about their chances at getting reelected. And I'll get to them in a minute. But before I do so, Trump was asked about all of this during a press conference he had at the Rose Garden today. And he sparred with reporters as always. In fact, let's take a quick look at the first video where a CNN reporter asked him to stop lying so much to the American people.
You ran your campaign promising supporters that Mexico is going to pay for the wall and that the wall was going to be made of concrete. You just said earlier that the wall could be made of steel, and right now our government is shut down over a demand from your administration that the American taxpayer pay for the wall. So how can you say you're not failing on that promise to your supporters?
Very nice question, so beautifully asked, even though I just answered it.
You didn't answer.
Look, let me just tell you, excuse me, you ready? Are you ready? I just told you that we just made a trade deal and we will take in billions and billions of dollars, far more than the cost of the wall. The wall is peanuts compared to what the value of this trade deal is to the United States. As far as concrete, I said I was going to build a wall. I never said I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall.
You said concrete.
Just so you don't, because I know you're not into the construction business. You don't understand something. We now have a great steel business that's rebuilt in the United States. Steel is stronger than concrete.
So steel is actually performing poorly in the stock market right now. So Trump is wrong about steel. Even with the tariffs on steel coming into the United States, it actually hasn't helped steel companies in the US as he expected. But more importantly, I love how he starts by answering her question about Mexico, how Mexico was supposedly gonna pay for the wall with, oh, here we go again. Yeah, here we go again. That was your talking point. People are gonna ask you about it. You're the president of the United States. You ran a campaign arguing that Mexico would pay for it. So what happened?
You said you drained the swamp and you hired a bunch of corrupt cronies from Goldman Sachs. Here we go again. Yeah, that was your campaign promise. But to me, I feel like we're done with this. We solved it. Because he said he wanted money for the wall, and he just told us that Mexico did pay for it through the trade deal. Then what do you need our $5 billion for? We're done with it. You said you got it from Mexico. All right, let's move on. Let's reopen the government.
It's so pathetic. And now, of course, Mexico hasn't paid for it. Trump's so-called negotiations regarding NAFTA have to be approved by Congress, and that hasn't happened. So right now, the American people would spend $5 billion on this nonsense border fence, the steel slats, whatever he wants to call it. And it doesn't really solve anything. And if you ask the majority of Americans right now, hey, what do you think about what's going on with this government shutdown? Should Trump hold federal workers hostage over this issue? The vast majority say no, he should not. We should open the government back up and pass a spending bill that makes sense. Now, unfortunately, Mick Mulvaney, who's now Trump's acting chief of staff, is egging him on, saying that he should continue demanding the funding. He shouldn't sign on to anything unless he gets exactly what he wants. And here's Trump talking about federal workers and how they love everything that's going on right now.
This really does have a higher purpose than next week's pay. And the people that won't get next week's pay or the following week's pay, I think if you ever really looked at those people, I think they'd say, Mr. President, keep going. This is far more important.
We continue to go with speaking on people without asking them anything. Again, I was talking earlier about how it's so easy to ask the simplest follow-up questions to these types of press conferences. He said this before. I think the federal workers, he didn't say I think this time, he said I think. Before he said, I've been speaking to federal workers and they told me keep going, Mr. President. Destroy our lives, keep eating up our paychecks for something that we have nothing to do with, except for your pride and your trying to keep your promises made, promises kept slogan. So, and it's only with this border wall, everything else, who cares about those promises made and kept? So now this time he said, I think it's a higher power. Just because you can go on and continue to live like this doesn't mean other folks can't. So you're characterizing them as backing you up. The next question, again, like I was saying, is obvious. So who said this to you? Can you bring them forward? Can you get them to say, hey, I'm okay with you continuing to shut down the government and eliminating my source of income for your wall?
Yeah, and by
proof,
the way,
that's all.
Yeah, and so he talked about the federal workers there, but overall, we did ask people. That's what a poll is. Yeah. And the poll said 25% of Americans agree with him on shutting down the government for funding the wall. That means 3/4 of the country do not agree with him. And by the way, his thesis is, well, 3/4 of the country might disagree with me. Of course, he never acknowledges that. But I think that the people who are hurt most by this somehow magically do agree. That makes no sense at all. Of course, they're in the 3/4 who don't agree. It costs them their paycheck.
Yeah. And so while Mick Mulvaney and Mike Pence keep egging Trump on, which is such a bad idea, you do have some Republicans in the Senate who are no longer willing to stand in solidarity with their fellow Republicans in the Senate. And these are Republicans who are looking to the future and their re-election campaigns. And they're very much concerned that they won't get reelected if this nonsense continues. So Senator Cory Gardner from Colorado is one of those Republicans. He says, quote, we can pass legislation that has the appropriations number in it while we continue to get more, but we should continue to do our jobs and get the government open and let Democrats explain why they no longer support border security. You know what? Fine, I'm in favor of that tactic, let's do it. So he's essentially saying, let's pass a spending bill now, we can ask for more later. I mean, he knows that the House is not going to pass.
Working out.
Right.
And with all these guys that are in the perceived purple states that are worried about their future in their upcoming elections, again, they're gonna get some level of credit for saying something that's normal, like, hey, we need to go ahead and open up the government and disagree with the president. But in reality, they're still only caring about their own election process. And we gotta look forward because we might be in trouble. Not anything to do with who you represent.
Right.
What you were elected to do and how you just carry on the normal business of the government. It's again about themselves. Again, this Republican Party is just like the leader of it. What have you done for me? How can I continue to work and continue to get bribes by other interests to stay in office? Nothing about constituents.
I just wanted to add that all our presidents in the past have had like that one center thing that they based their presidency around, right? For Obama, when his presidential campaign was about hope, right? And every presidency has this one thing. Trump's presidential campaign was nope. That's what it was, like hope and nope. That's what we got. Like no, you're not allowed to come to this country, and it's like, this entire country is based on immigrants. Just look at this panel alone, right? Yeah. We're either immigrants or children of immigrants.
Right. Yeah, Muslims, nope. Latinos, nope. Right?
Yeah.
Government, nope. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And so, by the way, so in an earlier story today, I said there's 25 Republicans that are up for re-election in the Senate. My bad, it is 22. It's still a big number. Only 12 Democrats up because of the vagaries of the Senate. There's 22 Republicans, so they're in a world of trouble in a lot of purple districts, including Cory Gardner. That's why they say 3, but it is at least 5 Republican senators, I counted, that are saying, no. Let's go. End the government shutdown. They're in a panic, including Capito from West Virginia. She's worried about her seat.
My favorite quote from Senator Capito is this. She says, quote, "I'd like to see it stop." Simple statement, but it speaks volumes.
Well, so why isn't it? So this is another amazing fact if you don't know. The version that the House just passed that Anna told you about, the Senate already passed it. Wait, now normally the way that it works is if Senate passes it and the House passes it, well then it goes to, then we got a bill and then it's gonna go to the president. I saw it on Saturday mornings in the cartoons. I know how bills are made. But in this case, it's a new Congress. And so the House passes it, the new House passes it, they bring it back to the Senate, and all the Senate has to do is repass the same exact thing they already agreed to. And Mitch McConnell is saying, no, I will not bring it up for a vote. Because he knows that if he brings it up for a vote, those Republicans are gonna flip and they're gonna agree with the Democrats. So he's like, I won't even allow a vote. You know what that's called? That's a Trump Protection Act, okay? Because he's trying to protect Trump's ass. So he knows that he's wrong. He knows Trump is wrong. He knows they don't have enough votes and that enough Republicans would vote for the Democrats and we would solve this and it would be done. So it's not just Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell should also get tremendous blame, almost equal blame for not ending this government shutdown because he could end it tomorrow if he just allowed them to vote on it. We're not even saying you have to vote yes. All you have to do is allow a vote. It's called democracy, Mitch. You should look into it. We're back on TYT. Now, this is kind of a holiday. It's the day after Thanksgiving. And in this next clip, we're gonna talk right before a holiday. So it was right before the 4th of July, and Trump wanted his military parade. Cause you like the toys, you like toys. So Ron Perlman had joined us for this segment. Legendary actor, Hellboy, Sons of Anarchy. There's a boy-son theme there that I hadn't noticed before. Anyway, Ron also does not like Donald Trump.
Right, which makes us like Ron. But yeah, I love this clip because it just shows you how juvenile Donald Trump is. I mean, the billionth example of it. And he didn't get everything he wanted, including like the ridiculous military parade with tanks and all that. But he did brag about it nonetheless. Take a look. Donald Trump is a baby. He's a child. And I mean that because he wants to have planes and tanks and a big military parade to celebrate the 4th of July. He is going to literally take money away from the National Park Service in order to make this happen. And I'm gonna give you the figure once we watch this video.
We're gonna have a great 4th of July in Washington, D.C. It'll be like no other, it'll be special, and I hope a lot of people come, and it's gonna be about this country, and it's a salute to America. And I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna say a few words, and we're gonna have planes going overhead, the best fighter jets in the world, and other planes too. And we're gonna have some tanks stationed outside. Got to be pretty careful with the tanks because the roads have a tendency not to like to carry heavy tanks, so we have to put them in certain areas. But we have the brand new Sherman tanks, so we have the brand new Abram tanks, and we have some incredible equipment, military equipment on display, brand new, and we're very proud of it. You know, we're making a lot of new tanks.
So
thanks very much.
No, he's any day now. He's gonna say stuff like that. Sorry, Andy, just one quick thing to add to that. When they were redesigning Air Force One, Trump's big contribution was he changed the colors. And he was so proud of that. He's like, oh no, I spent a lot of time on it. And I decided instead of just going blue and white, why don't we go blue, red, and white? And then somebody went on air and was talking about like how the deliberations for Air Force One and stuff. And they're like, it was like a kid playing with a Lego set. And he was so excited. And it is, he's like emotionally and mentally stunted. He just stopped growing mentally at, I don't know what the age is, 11, 8, I don't know what the number is. And I feel bad insulting 11-year-olds and 8-year-olds. But he's like, oh, I gotta get tanks, I gotta have tanks. I'm gonna move the tanks and we're gonna have planes. Oh, and I made the colors for the planes. It was red, white, and blue. That's so smart, get it like the flag.
I remember.
And we're having a conversation with this guy like as if he's like a legitimate statesman right? When he's a child.
I remember when Trump Airlines, it didn't make it, as we all know, right? One of his many business failures. One of the problems was that he wanted to design the planes. I mean, he had to renovate them because they were older planes with marble bathrooms and basically features that would make the plane too heavy. And it made no sense at all. But that's the kind of person he is. He's a child. Hold on, I got to give you the details on. He mentioned the roads, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna have the tanks, and the roads are gonna be in trouble because of because they're civilian roads. They're not set up for military parades and tanks, and so they are going to damage the roads. That's one of the many concerns that have come up as a result of this parade. And this parade is not to celebrate America. That is not the purpose of the parade. The purpose of the parade is to, give something to this self-indulgent child, but more importantly, it's a campaign event. He is treating this as a campaign event. His top donors will be front and center.
That's why.
So that's one other thing to consider, and it is gonna cost us a lot of money. So one of the things that the Trump administration is doing to pay for this is taking money away from the National Park Service. They're reportedly diverting nearly $2.5 million originally intended for parks across the country for this so-called celebration/campaign event.
So Ron, you looked up the weather, didn't you, on this?
Well, I was busy on Twitter right before I came out here. My dear friend Paul Rykov founded Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. No veterans are invited to this 4th of July celebration.
That's incredible.
Only lobbyists and donors.
It's amazing.
No veteran, because why would you want to invite somebody who fought and bled for our independence to an independence celebration?
Yeah. And then Ron was telling me before we got started that it's apparently literally going to rain on his parade. So I can't wait for the thunderstorms because he's going to get spooked.
It was fake news.
Yeah.
There was no rain. It was the most beautiful sun. It was the biggest sun. It was the strongest sun.
It was a sun surrounded by the universe. Okay, he actually probably doesn't even know that. But look, the fish rots from the head down, right? So incompetence follows him everywhere he goes, and there's a reason for that, by the way. There's a logical reason why he hires incompetent people, because he values loyalty like a mob boss over competence. And so if you're trying to cover things up, it's much more important to your well-being that your guys are loyal to you than that they're good at things. So I'm kind of worried one of the tanks is gonna go off. Is there a 0% chance? Well, under normal circumstances in America, well, we wouldn't have tanks in the streets, so there'd be a 0% chance. But even so, if there was, everybody be really careful, etc. The fish rots from the head down. Are you positive that something isn't going to go wrong in this insane celebration that he's doing?
I couldn't help but think about all the other issues that need to be funded in the country that are not being funded. Instead, we're using money for nonsense, the border wall that Trump still hasn't actually constructed. And this, I mean, there are people in America dying because they don't have health care right now. There are students, I mean, there are people right now who are drowning in so much debt that they are taking their own lives. Like suicide is up in America because people feel helpless.
Actually, especially among veterans. So
good point.
Yeah, another veteran, Richard Ojeda, a friend of the show, and ran down in West Virginia. And we put up a lot of his videos actually on Facebook.com/RebelHQ. And he was recently talking about a friend of his who committed suicide. And so it's really hard for veterans out there. And instead of doing the hard work of helping them, or the 9/11 responders, as you saw recently in Congress, the little boy wants to play with his toys. It's literally Donald Joffrey Baratheon, and he reminds me so much of that character that it's. And remember, if you Game of Thrones, Joffrey also liked to play with weapons, crossbows, etc., and liked to make impetuous decisions, etc. It's amazing the similarities.
It's a show, though. I mean, the really sick, twisted departure. I mean, everything about his being, every position he takes is a departure, because going back to that 8 or 11-year-old kid, something in there made him realize that the only attention he was going to get was negative. And he's really, really good at turning everything on its head. So if America has too much sophistication, it's garish for this country, who is far and away the greatest power on the face of the earth, to actually parade its power.
Right.
We don't do that. And that's kind of representative of this patriotism that he's bastardizing, that it's so one-dimensional and it's so anti what we are. So the essence of the country is being fought for by two different forces, and that's his playbook, is to make sure that there are two forces, not one. There's no e pluribus unum. It's like, how can I get you to hate you, so that you have to depend on me for your well-being? Yeah, and it's working.
Yeah, it is working.
It's a great point, Ron, because North Korea does a lot of military parades. Why? Because they're insecure. They are a small country and they're worried that they're not a superpower, et cetera. And so they're like, oh yeah, look at our tanks and our missiles, et cetera. Now, we're the largest military power that the world has ever seen. We don't need to do that. But Trump himself personally is insecure.
Right, yeah.
And so that's why he does it. Obama didn't need to do it. Even Bush and Clinton, et cetera, they didn't need to do it. But Trump feels like, well, I got to prove something. I got to prove something. Because he could never prove it to his daddy or whatever, when he got emotionally and mentally stunted at a young age and stopped growing. And that insecurity has never left him.
I mean, a lot of terrible decisions have been made by presidents through their own personal insecurities. I mean, invading Iraq is part of it. Right?
Well, that's a great point too, and you shouldn't let Bush off the hook there, because Trump's doing a stupid parade. It's actually one of the smaller problems that Trump has. But Bush invaded Iraq. That was an actual military parade that was a million times worse, because literally a million innocent civilians lost their lives, let alone all of our troops that Rykov and Ojeda and so many others talk about. And so now there's this romanticism about George W. Bush in the press. Don't romanticize him. He was a terrible guy who made terrible decisions, and partly out of insecurity, because he wanted to do what his daddy, in his mind, what his daddy couldn't do.
The problem with that analogy, though, is that Bush never made any of those decisions, I don't think. I think that Bush was the perfect fall guy, the complete blank slate that all these dudes who were surrounding him could paint on and get their world order, to be what it was. So the reason why we have a fondness for him right now is because now that he's out of the limelight and just retired into like being this regular dude, everybody goes, he's a pretty nice guy, man.
I mean, it is.
He never did any of those things. Cheney was doing those things. Rumsfeld would. Whereas with this thing, this is Trump's world. Make no mistake about it. Every single thing that you're seeing, from the southern border to the attack on climate, to like all the scientists that work in climate change have gotten pink slips, because they're trying to save the earth, which is like that's not part of my agenda. Every single attack that he's made on all of the things that make life worth living in a democracy are his soul. Being, emanating out of him. The real crime is that, the checks and balances, the guys who can save us from him, and there are many, are basically just like...
They're enabling it.
They're not only enabling it, but those are the ones that are going to hell as far as I'm concerned. The guys who are just sitting by going, no, there's nothing wrong here, folks. There's nothing to see here. It's okay that we abdicate all of our responsibility to the Constitution, to the American way, so that this guy can keep flagrantly packing our courts and flagrantly putting money in our pockets through corporate tax cuts. And it's what it is.
And I see what you're saying, Ron, because Trump is so personally and obviously cruel that it makes Bush, who was kind of like a goofball, seem more likable by comparison. Trump was a useful idiot, used by people like Dick Cheney and John Bolton. But now Bolton's back.
Bush was, you mean?
I'm sorry, Bush was. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. But Trump is an idiot and cruel, whereas Bush was an idiot who was used by cruel guys like Dick Cheney. At the end of the day, though, the results are what matter, and they've both been hideous presidents.
I mean,
terrible
when you combine robber barons and slavers and Nazis into one guy, and that's our president, then there's nobody else to blame for that. I mean, we are watching, the representation of his soul, and it's black, it's dark, and it's in our faces every day, and it's really having an effect on.
It has an effect on our democracy, and it shows you how fragile it is, right? I mean, like, I think a lot of Americans are under the assumption that we have this strong democracy, but it's being dismantled quickly under this administration. It's incredibly fragile, and if you have an issue with someone who's really challenging constitutional rights, and you don't have the checks and balances in place, or you don't have the people who actually want to exercise those checks and balances, it dismantles democracy, dismantles everything that we're supposed to stand for. And we're seeing it happen right in front of our eyes. It's depressing.
Trump is such a child. I wanted to be G.I. Joe. Okay.
All right,
Anyway.
Mr. Bone Spurs.
I know, right? You had your shot. So now, speaking of children, Meghan McCain.
Yes.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to this clip because I didn't happen to see this one because I wasn't on this show. And apparently Meghan pulled a stunt, which is kind of hilarious. And JR has a Meghan McCain montage within the clip.
Right.
So this is kind of gold.
It's really good. Now, just to set it up a little more, Meghan McCain had been feuding with her producers. And one of the producers, or maybe a few of the producers, had leaked that she had faked an illness in order to avoid coming in on an uncomfortable day. Okay, take a look. Meghan McCain had recently been taking days off of The View, and there was a lot of speculation as to why she was doing it. She is not really one to get along with certain women on that panel, and I think it's pretty obvious, especially when you see mashups like this one.
People are smart, okay? So I'm just saying, do you know what's helping Pete Buttigieg? So am I. So am I.
But there's a difference between socialist and democratic.
You disagree that I'm smart?
No, I disagree with the idea that socialism is a bad thing in the way they're describing it.
Democratic socialist.
Well, we've had a bunch of liberal guests who do not want to send in aid at all.
I listen to you. Let me just finish.
Yeah, part of your job is to listen to me. And the only time the Democrats started caring is when it started affecting them politically, and Hillary Clinton's emails were released, and John Podesta's emails were released.
Does
and
anybody?
I, for one,
what's going to happen with him? That's my question.
So here's the biggest
I hope he rots in hell, starting with that.
Yeah.
I miss Brookie when she's not here. I mean, I'm just trying to explain to you the other side and why he's a great candidate and why democratic socialists could be leading you towards the path towards Trump getting reelected. But instead, I'm told that I don't understand what democratic socialism is. I assure you, Joy, I do.
Okay, so
a lot of eye rolling and smacking and mouth.
I love this story. Okay. So I'm burying the lead, guys. So it turns out some of the producers at The View went and spoke to the press anonymously. Their identity hasn't been revealed or anything like that. But I didn't know that Meghan McCain's father-in-law is facing an ethics investigation, and so the producers are speculating that the reason why she's calling in sick isn't because she's actually sick, it's because she doesn't want to have to talk about her father-in-law. Now, keep in mind, no one even knows who her father-in-law is, and that wasn't even one of the topics that The View covered while she was gone. But nonetheless, let me give you the details. And also, I just want to acknowledge, the Daily Mail broke this. I do know that the Daily Mail is a bit tabloidy. I don't care. For the sake of this conversation.
I really like this one.
Yeah, because look, I think the producers are speculating. For me, it's not about, because the producers are like, oh, she faked it. She called in sick and she faked. I don't care. I don't care about that. But I do care about the ethics investigation. I certainly care about that, and that is real, okay? So let me give you the details. The timing of McCain's absence and return in time to heap praise upon Biden raised eyebrows at the show because the days off conspicuously coincided with news that her father-in-law, Doug Dominic, was among 6 Trump administration appointees under investigation for ethics violations. So one anonymous producer said, quote, she took off to avoid to talk about her husband's dad and everyone knew it. And also a producer says, she comes on the show daily and says she hates Donald Trump and has benefited from the president's attack on her late father. So for it to be revealed that her father-in-law not only works for the president, but is now under an ethics investigation, she was humiliated and conveniently sick for 2 days. Again, look, the producers are clearly speculating here. They don't really know for sure. I don't really know for sure, and I don't care. And if I were in her position, I would probably want to do anything and everything to avoid having to have a public conversation about members of my family, right? But with that said, damn, there's an ethics investigation. Like, let's talk about that.
The best part of this article though was, that they're acknowledging that she always says, I want to keep my personal life private. I have heard I am John McCain's daughter so many daggum times. Stop lying, like, you know what I mean?
Right. Your personal life is kind of your brand.
Right.
What? She talks about, she talks about all of her friends, all the famous people that are her friends, who are her friends, all of the politicians that she's close with.
Do you remember I have a friend who's Jewish?
Yes. When she had the breakdown, she was crying.
That's personal.
Who was it? Was it? I forget which politician she was referring to, but yes, she talks about her personal life all the time. That's what it was Joe Lieberman. She brings almost nothing to the table other than her personal relationships, as you can see in various clips where, anyway. So let me give you more details. Dominic also works as, and that's the father-in-law. Dominic works as the Assistant Secretary for Insular and International Affairs at the Interior Department and is the highest ranking official named in this complaint. This is the ethics investigation. It is alleged that Dominic continued to interact with conservative think tank Fueling Freedom Project at the Texas Public Policy Foundation that he had worked for before joining the Interior Department. And that is a clear ethics violation. You are not supposed to do that. The complaint outlines how 6 political appointees continue to discuss policy matters with organizations that had employed them in the past. Again, you're not supposed to do that. So that is what spurred the ethics investigation. And it is a fascinating story. And then there's the added layer of who Meghan McCain's husband is. He's a public figure. He works at the Federalist, which is a conservative outlet.
Did he found it?
I think he did, yeah. And he's gotten into all sorts of trouble in the past. He got fired from the Washington Post back in 2006. He had worked there for a total of 3 days and he got fired because he was found plagiarizing stories that had already been published in like the National Review and stuff like that.
But he also took a $26,000 press junket from Malaysia, like he took money in from the country of Malaysia.
Yes. So
feels like not a great way to make a good impression on the employers. You would think that Meghan McCain's I don't know how she and her husband met, but it seems like we're at the speculative part of the show, so I'm just gonna go with it. You would feel like her Tinder bio would read like, please don't have any sort of relationships with the president who is constantly besmirching my recently deceased father. Like you'd think that as she met her partner and her father-in-law that would be troubling, but.
Oh man, that Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh man.
That must be awkward, right? I mean, you have your father-in-law.
Tied to the guy who.
I don't know, like when you agree on everything except for the fact that he was mean to your dad. Like look at Ted Cruz, he moved on real quick. Lindsey Graham moved on.
I know.
Real quick, because when you agree with everything,
right,
except for the fact that you were mean a little bit, I feel like these things people can get over them.
Probably, I mean, my personal take on this story is that it's probably not real. She was probably sick. Like I'm very inclined to trust her about that. Except that what I think is interesting is like when your producers are going to the Daily Mail and talking about things, like you're both in television, that seems to be a bad sign for your relationship with the staff on the television show that you work for.
Because it's not just her beliefs, which can bother people, but people go to work every day with people who don't have the same beliefs as them.
Sure.
It's the huffing and puffing.
Yeah.
It's that aspect of it, which I imagine also happens offset, like off camera.
Yes.
It's that part, which is like, ooh.
Because Abby Huntsman doesn't agree with all the women of The View, but that combative relationship doesn't seem to exist between Abby Huntsman and the other ladies, whereas with Meghan McCain, it exists between herself and everyone.
right, back on TYT. So we actually kind of been going in order. We're about to show you the clip that did the best for us for the whole year. So well over 1 million people have watched this, and for good reason. This is when Trump supporters find out, oh no, we got screwed.
They found out pretty early on, probably because they looked at their paycheck and they looked at the stub and realized, oh, those tax cuts, they actually were for the rich and don't really positively impact us at all.
Yeah, so look, there's a whole bunch of stories where they got screwed and realized it. Like one of my favorites was at the border, a lot of the property owners are Republicans and they're like diehard Trump fans. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take your land and build a wall there. And they're like, what? Yeah, where did you think he was gonna build a wall?
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, it's a bitch. Okay, so, but in this case, they realized they got screwed on the taxes, and that's also fun. Let's watch.
It's tax season, which means everyone is getting their documents together, their W-2s, their 1099s, they're going to their tax preparer. And it turns out that a number of Trump supporters are realizing that those Trump tax cuts that the GOP willy-nilly passed actually did not save them much in taxes. Many people are owing more to the IRS than in previous years. And their tweets about it are, I feel terrible for them, thoughts and prayers. But I do enjoy reading them. So let me give you the details.
I got thoughts, but I ain't got no prayers.
Now, Americans are winding up having to pay more because the legislation actually eliminated multiple deductions used by middle-class families to lower their annual tax payments. Now look, a lot of this is really dependent on where you live. So if you live in a state that has, let's say, state taxes, you can't deduct them the same way that you did previously. And when it comes to, let's say, your mortgage interest deduction or your property tax deduction, it's capped at a certain amount. So I believe it's $10,000 it's capped at. Long story short, there are certain deductions that don't exist anymore. There's another one for people who have, like, let's say, representatives like an agent or a manager. If you get a freelance job through an agent or manager, that person usually takes a cut, about 10% or something like that. You're not able to deduct that anymore. So you will have to pay taxes on the amount of money that you paid your agent or manager. So you guys get who is, this is very punitive for certain people, right? So if you live in a blue state that has high taxes, you get the point. Now,
can I just say, look, I don't want you guys to be, it's not everybody's taxes didn't go up, right? Some people's taxes went down dramatically, and some people's taxes went up, and some were relatively unaffected. So the people who had their taxes go down, do you know who they were? The top 1% and multinational corporations. So is my favorite fact, the Trump tax cuts for the top 1% led to a tax cut of $61,000 per year. On average, okay, they got an extra $61,000 because that's what the top 1% needed, okay. So now, meanwhile, a lot of Trump supporters, whether they're in blue states who got taxed harder, or in other states, because some of these middle class exemptions were taken away because they had to give more to the rich. Come to find out, oh my God, this actually affected me and it increased my tax. But what did you think we were telling you? We told you that in the beginning. We told you that it was a terrible idea, that it was gonna raise a lot of your taxes, and it was gonna give it all to, almost all of it to the rich, and you didn't believe us. Well, now, this is the chickens coming home to roost.
Yes, and I wanna also just quickly mention that when the GOP was trying to sell the tax legislation, they made the argument that they're gonna close the loopholes. They're gonna close the loopholes, right? They're gonna lower the corporate tax from 35% to 21%. By the way, the effective tax is much lower than that. But they're gonna close the loophole, so all these corporations are actually gonna end up spending more on taxes. No, they didn't cut any or close any of those loopholes. The only deductions they went after were the deductions that the middle class gets to use when they file taxes.
Yeah, and to be fair, look, it doesn't affect the incomes at the lower brackets as much, right? And the rich are ecstatic because they got huge tax breaks. It mainly hits the middle class.
Yes.
And in fact, there was a Republican congressman that was on air on cable news after the tax package passed, and they said, you know, you're going to close the loopholes. I think it was Stephanie Rule on MSNBC that asked, and said, so name one loophole you closed for corporations. He's like, Couldn't name one. Couldn't name one because corporations made out like bandits. So now let's go to the people, Trump supporters, crying that it turns out their taxes went up.
Okay, so we have Dennis Jordan. These are all people on Twitter. I'm a Republican voter. I just did our taxes. The GOP tax bill cost my family thousands of dollars this year on our return due to changes, thereby hitting us with the largest tax increase of our lives. We are middle-class homeowners, and you raised our taxes. Infuriating.
But hey, you were owning the libs, so I guess that was fun.
Look, I think that, look, I love this story and I want to go after them hard, but I don't think all of them fall under the category of like, Ben Shapiro, I'm gonna destroy you, and I'm a destroyer. Like, they're not all like that. So I don't know, this guy seems like he's fine, but he voted for the wrong person.
I hear you, but it's hard for me to have sympathy for people because we told you. And you were like, oh yeah, no way, man. No way, I believe in alternative facts. Well, enjoy your alternative taxes.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One other person writes, I have to pay $2,000 more in taxes this year. What happened? I voted for you, she was tweeting to Trump, and thought you were fixing this, not making it worse. I thought I would get money back this year. Well, you were wrong. NYC girl also tweeted, voted for you, family of 2 hardworking New York cops, did taxes for years. We should pay more and get a refund at the end of the year to help pay debt. First time in 30 years we had to pay more in federal taxes. I'm disgusted. So yeah, I want to just quickly touch on that. So some people do rely on that tax refund to pay down debt or pay for, let's say, a family vacation or something like that. A lot of people are in for a very rude awakening, and I knew this was coming.
But remember, a lot of people do taxes later. So this is just the first wave because the government reopened. These are the people like Anna who are vigilant and do it right away. People like me who wait till the very last second. So this is gonna come in waves, are gonna get hit later, right? So, I mean, it's tweet after tweet and you can say, hey, listen, it's just guys on Twitter and you don't know, okay. But the tax policy was already, in the beginning it was polling at around 26%, I believe. I think at one point it slipped down to 17%. These are monstrously low numbers. I mean, they're so bad that Republicans stopped like even talking about taxes. They had all these ads like, we cut your taxes.
Yes.
And this is before people got like actually saw themselves getting screwed. Even then they weren't buying it, most folks, right? And then, but these are the hardcore Republicans, Trump voters who were like, no, well you guys are libs and we don't trust you and enemy of the people with the fake news. Oh no, okay, and that's what just happened. Sorry, hashtag really not that sorry. It's your fault in the first place. We told you not to vote for him. We told you that tax policy was designed for rich people. We were right, you were wrong. Now you're out a couple $1,000. So yeah, a bunch of them saying I won't vote for you in 2020. Okay, great, but damage is done and it's done to you. But hey, look, to be fair, don't worry. The job creators got an extra $61,000 a year. So maybe one day it'll trickle down on you. So you should enjoy that.
Let's read some more of the tweets though.
Now we're having fun. There you go, Anna.
All right, Angie tweets, worst tax return I had in a decade. I admit I voted for Donald Trump, but he has officially lost my vote for 2020. One other person whose name I can't pronounce says, wait till you file your taxes. Middle class just lost half their return. Lowest refund I have ever had, and I'm 50 years old. No wall, and now this tax reform sucks too. Starting to doubt Trump. I voted for him and trusted him too.
Okay, so first of all, on the wall, what did we just tell you? Because we've been covering the wall this whole time. We told you that he did not prioritize the wall. He waited 2 years to try to get money for the wall. What did he prioritize? Tax cuts for the rich. And by the way, also tax increases for you. Oops, told you he was lying to you the whole time. And then finally, that gets me to my overall point. The reason we did the loser Donald segments before the election was to tell you the guy's a grifter. He's a scam artist.
I love the word grifter.
Yeah, he's been a con man his entire life. Yes. And we tried to warn you. And now, and what do we tell you? I remember covering Trump University. and how he scammed people out of $5,000, $10,000. First of all, no billionaire is scamming anybody out of $5,000. If they scam people, they're gonna scam for a lot more, okay? And so he's trying to get $5,000, $10,000 a year, cardboard cutouts of Donald Trump to like pay $35,000 to take a picture. Wait a minute, that's not Trump. I mean, he is a low-level con artist, right? And so, but everyone who gave the Trump Foundation, who went to Trump University, who participated, who lent him money. Remember, he went bankrupt 6 times. Every person who ever trusted Donald Trump went on to regret it. Just go ask Michael Cohen, and the list goes on and on, right? But you thought you were special, that you were the one person he actually cared about. That's what a con man does. They trick you into thinking, no. All the other people, no. But I'm on your side.
No, we have.
That's the whole point of the con.
Yep.
And so you got conned, and now you just realized, oops, I got conned out of my money, and it went to his donors and his buddies, and it went to Donald Trump. Yeah, that's what happened.
Look, I'm not saying it's been kind of an awesome show. I'm just saying, right? I'm not saying it's kind of cool that we did a extra show for you guys on Black Friday. I'm just saying.
Look, we're so grateful for you guys, seriously. And we never want to leave you hanging. We just want to show you how grateful we are and how thankful we are for everything that you've done for us, for the support. You know, I know that I've gone through some like tough moments on TYT, and you guys have always supported me, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so, but I do need you to keep shopping, but only at shoptyt.com. All right, have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.